We are at one of the focal points of any commencement ceremony, and it gives me great pleasure to introduce our featured speaker. Christopher Emdin is the Maxine Green Chair for Distinguished Contributions to Education and Professor of Science and Education at Teachers College, Columbia University. He is also Director of Creativity, Innovation, and Entrepreneurship at the STEAM Dream Idea Lab at Skidmore College. Dr. Emdin was recently Robert A. Naslund Endowed Chair in Curriculum Theory and Professor of Education at the University of Southern California, where he also served as Director of Youth Engagement and Community Partnerships at the USC Race and Equity Center. He is currently Scholar in Residence at Lincoln Center for the Performing Arts and Alumni Fellow at the Hip Hop Archive and Hutchins Center at Harvard University. He previously served as STEAM Ambassador for the U.S. Department of State and Minorities in Energy, Ambassador for the U.S. Department of Energy. Dr. Emdin holds a PhD in urban education with a concentration in mathematics, science, and technology, master's degrees in both natural sciences and education, and bachelor's degrees in physical anthropology, biology, and chemistry. He is the creator of the #HipHopEd social media movement, Science Genius Battles, and Collider Classroom. He was recently named one of the 27 people bridging divides in the United States by Time magazine and the Root 100 list of most influential African Americans. He is the author of numerous award-winning works, including the award-winning Urban Science Education for the Hip Hop Generation and the New York Times bestseller for White Folks Who Teach in the Hood, and the rest of y'all too. And I am not being colloquial, that is the title of the book. His latest books are Ratchetdemic, Reimagining Academic Excellence, and STEM STEAM Make Dream. Ladies and gentlemen, I can think, and we at the college could think of no one more appropriate to speak at a time like this, as our chaplain said, at this Kairos moment, than Professor Christopher Emdin. Please welcome him.
Good evening, everyone. Good evening, graduates. Good evening, graduates. I thought this was a graduation and not a mourning. And although I got a good opportunity to engage with our colleague who we lost, and know the impact of her work and a desire for this moment. And so, in her spirit, I'm asking you to actually celebrate. So, good evening, graduates. Good evening. All right, so that's first comment. We got that out of the way. Now, the next thing, like that musical rendition was moving. And it's a Negro spiritual. It comes for folks who were really locked into enslavement. And when you talk about this idea of keep your eyes on the prize and hold on, I want you to understand that those are folks who did not have the prize at all, right? They had to imagine a prize. They were holding on to something that existed yet did not exist. Y'all still with me? And I want you to hold on to that idea of the radical imagination of a person who lacks, to hold on to something that not yet is. Can you hold on to that for me? All right, put that in your pocket. We're going to reference that later. And then next, as the song moved me, I started looking at the page, and I realized that the lead singer was Miss Abiana Fenty. And I was like, is she related to Rihanna? Like, is there another Fenty with a beautiful voice? How many Fentys with amazing voices are we going to have on this planet? Abiana, that was gorgeous. That was beautiful. And now let's get into our talk. All right, so, I am here, and I'm here at this graduation because this is the graduating class in Erdiston who are ushering in this new frontier of education transformation. There could have been a group that graduated last year. I wasn't here for them. I'm not saying they weren't important, but they were not the group that was ushering in this new movement to transform education. And next year, there'll be another group, and they will be special. But they're not the graduating class that is ushering in this concept of transformation in education. And so just celebrate yourselves for that. And then, once you celebrate yourself for that, I'm going to ask you to do something outside of the norm. But if you're transforming, we got to go outside of the norm, right? I want you all to just pick up your cell phones, because we've been talking about transformation all evening, and I want you to type in the word transformation. And once you've done that, let me know through a deep head nod, right? This is how you know who the digital natives are and the digital relics are. Some folks can't open up their phone yet. Some folks still got a flip phone, so they're like, I don't know how to look up words. But the graduates have their phones open already, and they've already typed in transformation, and they have the answers because they all gave deep nods as everybody else waited. So graduates, let me know if I'm lying. Transformation. Noun. A thorough or dramatic change in form or appearance. I want to stop there. We've had a lot of conversation about educational transformation, and we're doing all the work to kind of make that happen with theory and practice and MOUs and all those things behind the scenes. We've been transforming the form. But understand it's form or what? Appearance. Which means if you transform the form and ain't changed the appearance, I'm not quite sure yet if you're achieving full transformation. So I want to begin first by challenging you to make this thing look different also. We're doing the hard work to make it be structurally sound. We're creating the partnerships to make sure you have all the best and brightest folks in the building. But when we are celebrating a graduation, our appearance got to be different. So could you, graduates, like dust your shoulders off or make a large sound? Feel like something in here. You are part of a group to change the thing. Make it sound and feel and also appear different. Yes? Now, once we understand that part, the transformation and all that, I also want to get you to a mathematical definition of transformation that I want us to not ensure that we do. And in mathematics, a transformation is a self-map. Interesting, huh? It is when a function with some geometrical underpinning maps a set back onto itself. I don't know if you caught what I'm saying right now. It's a change in form and appearance, but it can also be an unintended mathematical transformation where you have a system, function X, mapping itself back to itself, doing the same old thing it's been doing under the appearance or the nomenclature of transformation. And this is why appearance is important. Because if you say you're changing the form and it doesn't get manifested in your appearance, you may simply be mapping back to yourself the same thing you've been doing for the sake of self-congratulation. And graduates, we're not going to let that happen, are we? Keep your eyes on the prize and hold on asks you to activate your imagination. The imagination is actually the thing that ensures the transformation is not mathematical, but an actual one in form and appearance. Imagination. Everybody say imagination. To imagine is to see in the midst of something that's been past. A vision anew that has not been seen before. My brother said there's nothing new under the sun. I said, yeah, there is new things under the sun because the sun can only see what it sees, but the folks who are beneath the sun help to redefine and reimagine things the sun can't capture. Have you ever asked the sun if there's nothing new under it? It can't speak back. We can always create things anew, and we are anew in the world right now. Why are we having transformation? Because with the advent of artificial intelligence over the course of the last year, not even a full year, y'all, 8 months, this thing has come and changed the entire landscape of the world. You can ask a question to this thing, it spits back a full answer. You can put a paper topic into it, it gives you a full answer. You can ask questions from the history and the past. It can even help you to predict the future. In an era where artificial intelligence has climbed to be the arbiter of knowledge in contemporary society, one thing really interesting has happened. It means that the relics of education that said help students to graduate and gain information is a past time. I don't need you to have a whole bunch of information. Google can do that for me. I don't need you to have answers. AI can do that for me. And if the world we had was one that talked about you getting blind information, it makes something else very, very special. It makes something else be the essence of transformation, and that is imagination. One thing AI can't do is activate imagination. No matter what you input into it, it can only give you outputs that are an algorithm of a time before. So who then is going to be the holder of imagination? Now, if you want an education that reflects the time, it has to be one where the teachers, you graduates, are going into schools and fostering radical imagination, but you cannot foster imagination for any young people unless you first find imagination for yourself. Y'all done messed up and got me on here on a Sunday. You got me preaching. Listen, so once you get the degree and the certification, that's simply just a passport not to do what you've gotten in the school so far, but a passport and a freedom pass for the activation of your imagination. Now, this is particularly important because imaginations, when I say activate the imagination, I also want you to do a thing called releasing the imagination. And to activate something is a very important task, but to release something connotes that that thing has been imprisoned. Oh, y'all, are y'all listening to me today? You can activate a thing if it was already there, but to release it means that before you can activate something, you have to first recognize the fact that you've had that thing imprisoned. So to release the imagination, to say if a thing has been imprisoned, it's to say then, listen, young people walk into the earth with a profound imagination. A profound capacity to make meaning of their environments. A profound statement. Which one is the mom? Which one is the dad? Oh, that's the mom. She picks me up all the time. This guy really picks me up. I want his attention. Let me imagine a thing to allow that parent to give me the attention I deserve. So we'll say, if I just spoke, they don't respond. Let me imagine something different. If I screamed, they actually start coming. Nice. Check. So by virtue of existence, human beings are born with imagination, and then they go into institutions. And institutions say to you, listen, don't scream for attention. Raise your hand to be called upon. If you're a smart human being, it means I'll give you all this information and you spit it back out to me and I'll give you an exam. And that exam will determine whether or not you're smart or not. No one asks if you had a bad day on the day of the exam. That impacts your capacity to do well. But all of a sudden, I think that's the thing that marks you as brilliant, and you're either brilliant at this point or not brilliant at all. And all of a sudden, through the process of schooling, we incarcerate the imagination of brilliant children. Now, that was okay for quite some time because we did not have information at our fingertips. But now that information is at our fingertips, we have to go back to resurface, reclaim, and release the imagination. Now, I want to ask you a question. What do you think is inhibiting the imagination? Some will say structures. They will say traditions. They will say there are palpable things that are in our way that inhibit us from being able to get this done. It's like, Dr. Emdin, don't you see the forces beyond us we can't get through? And so I will invite you to embark really quickly with me on a journey through science. And in the worlds of science, there are oftentimes fascinating discoveries. And one of the ones that has really just captured my imagination is this concept of the pillars of creation. Everybody say pillars of creation. Now, these pillars of creation, it was named that by NASA. And they named these things the pillars of creation because they went out in space and they found a telescope that somebody invented and created. And they realized that if you look through this telescope, through the darkness of space, you can actually look something so deep of 7,000 light years beyond now. And when they looked through the telescopes through space, they saw these huge, gigantic, almost like elephant trunk-shaped forces. Some of them were so big, they were bigger than our current solar system. So when they looked up in space and they saw these huge columns, what do you think the scientists thought? Oh my gosh, this must be an invisible force we can't get through. They saw these things, and they were so magnanimous, they called them the pillars of creation. But then something interesting happened. They started studying these pillars of creation more deeply, more closely. They started trying to find what constitutes these pillars of creation. As they went and they studied to see what made these blocks, they realized that the pillars of creation were constructed out of interstellar gases and all these elements. And you know what those elements were? Those elements were the relics of old stars. Y'all not following me today. They saw these things that they said were too big to be conquered. And when they studied them, they realized that those things were, but they actually were not. When you see something and you think it's a solid force, you think you can't get through it. And then you study and you realize that what happened in space was they were stars. And as the old stars were dying off, they started emitting gases into the atmosphere. And those gases all accumulated over time. And as they accumulated over time, they looked like real actual things. The things were there, but they were not. So when say, Dr. Emdin, we can't activate the imagination, we've been doing this way for a long time. I'm saying to you that the stars of old were there. But all of a sudden, the world shifted, the space shifted, and those old stars are dying off. And as those old stars are dying off, they're emitting gases and nitrogen into the atmosphere because that's all they have left. And so we are sitting here looking at this thing that's stopping us from activating our imagination. And in reality, the things that we are looking at to stop us don't actually exist. Our imaginations are conquered through the recognition that the only thing that gets us through the pillars of creation is our own willingness to see things anew. And so, teachers, I implore you as you go into classrooms, if you see a classroom that is not yet, imagine what that classroom could be like with your presence. If you see a broken system before you, imagine a system that does not yet exist. Don't go back to a model of how it looked for before. Trust what's in your hearts and souls. Trust what drove you to choose to teach to begin with. No one chooses the profession because they want wealth. No one chooses this profession because they want accolades. They choose this profession because they believe in their souls and they can imagine a classroom, a world, a being beyond what is. So don't get a credential to go out and teach and be hampered by this concept of the pillars of creation that doesn't really exist. Rather pursue a dream not yet. Hold on to a prize not seen. Make transformation not just be in function, but in form and in appearance. Go out there and be fully what I call ratchetemic. Holding on to your ratchet selves and your academic selves. Y'all don't even know what I mean by that, do you? You know, a ratchet person is a person who understands that by virtue of my existence, I've got a way of being in the world that connects to real people. Not credentialed people, not quote-unquote honorable people, the people who really need you in the world. The ratchet person is okay with going to a dance hall and celebrating their life fully, but also understands that as much as I am ratchet, as much as I am off-color, as much as I am irrespective of the structure, I still have a responsibility to be the most academic person. The system has taught you to curtail your imagination and has taught you that your authentic self with imagination is outside of what is required to be an appropriate teacher or an academic or intellectual. They have lied to you. The notion that a teacher looks a certain way and talks a certain way and looks like the teacher that taught the teacher that taught the teacher that taught you. The season for that is over. Listen. For those who know what is right to do because they've heard it and refuse to do it, it is sin. The word sin, when defined, means you've missed the mark. This season, we've identified the mark of educational transformation. And if you go into the classrooms, graduates, and do things the way they've always been done, you've missed the mark. You've committed a sin. You are those who will teach those who will inherit the earth. You are those who will imagine the future not yet, but yet is. You as a teacher have a legacy. You are somebody's ancestor by virtue of sitting in that seat and possibly teaching somebody something different. And if you're somebody's ancestor and you miss the mark, you betray your legacy. So once you graduate today and you get that credential in your hand, understand that it's a passport on a flight to imagination. You are somebody's ancestor, you're somebody's legacy, you're somebody's wildest dream, you're somebody's imagination yet to be. Go out there and teach like it. Thank you.